Thank you to all of our members for supporting this channel, especially the Lords and Commanders. If you're interested in extra battle reports and helping to support this channel, hit the link in the description box below. Go check out our channel partners, Baron of Dice and Grey Matter Games. They have some amazing products. There will be promo codes and links in the description box below.
What's up and welcome back, Wargamers. This is BattleShock's weekly talk show, the 4th edition on the 24th. I'm Andrew Dussault, Elvish Shellfish on Discord, and I'm happy to be joined by Michael, the Tree Lord Supreme, not available at Taco Bell, and David Devro, the dank denizen of destruction. This week we got a bunch of faction focuses to get through. We got the last 7 to go through. We're going to try to get through as many of them as possible today. We want to get through all of them today, so we're going to dive right into that. Before we do, though, if you're joining us on YouTube and you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe to satisfy the dark gods of the algorithm. Let's dive right in, starting with the sultry, seductive Slaaneshi cults. The Hedonites of Slaanesh, their big mechanic coming in is they have two major mechanics. An excess of depravity and euphoric killers. So they're moving the temptation dice to this rule, and they're giving bonuses from those dice. So an excess of depravity. Pick up to 3 friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh units to be the targets. The targets have the euphoric keyword for the rest of the battle round. In addition, for each friendly unit you pick, give your opponent 1 temptation dice. Your opponent can use 1 temptation dice to place 1 wound, save, ward, run, roll for a unit in their army with a 6, or they can use 2 temptation dice to replace 2 of the dice in a charge roll for a unit in their army with 2 6s. Each time your opponent uses a temptation dice, they must roll it on a 1 to 2, inflict D3 mortal damage on the unit for which the roll was replaced immediately after the ability used. So you use a temptation dice, you get a 6, you roll a dice, on a 1 to 2, you take D3 mortal damage on that unit. At the end of the battle round, any temptation dice that have not been used are lost. And the euphoric keyword goes over to this passive ability, the euphoric killers. While a friendly unit has the euphoric keyword, that unit's weapons have crit 2 hits, so exploding 6s to hit, and they can use a run ability and still use shoot or charge later this turn. So you're gaining run and shoot and or charge and exploding 6s for all their weapons, not just combat. And in exchange, you're giving your opponent 3 6s. Yes. Did I read that right? Yeah, it's all weapons, exploding 6s.
It seems pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't like the temptation dice part of it, but I like the euphoric killers part of it for sure.
Yeah. The big one that everybody is honing in on is that you can get a automatic 12-inch charge, which can ruin anybody's day. And that's kind of the big criticism of this rule so far. Going into their battle formations, we have the Aesthetic Throngs. +1 to hit rolls for friendly Sybarite infantry units while they are damaged or if they have had any models slain in the same turn. So that has to happen on your turn or your opponent's turn. And considering how squishy Slaanesh is, you might just lose everybody. Other battle formations revolve around Seeker Cavalry, or summoning demons in some way, focusing on egotistical champions. So we got a few other options coming forward. Looks like they have some form of summoning or whatever replaces summoning in one of their sub-factions. For their lore, we see one example of the lore of extravagance, sadistic spite, which goes off on a 6. And the rule is pick a friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh wizard to cast a spell on a 2d6 for you pick a visible friendly euphoric unit to be the target and make a casting roll of 2d6. The target's melee weapons have crit mortals instead of crit 2 hits for the rest of the battle round. So you can give out crit mortals. It looks like in shoot. Oh, this is melee only. You can't do shooting mortals, but you can give that out unlimited to any number of your 3 euphoric units. All right, moving into
Mortals in combat is good.
Yeah, Mortals in combat is always awesome, especially with the number of attacks that Slaanesh puts out. Moving on to our first War Scroll. Shalaxi Hellbane. 14-inch move, 16 health, 4-up save, 5 control, and a 5-up ward. He has a lot of interesting rules here. First, the combat stats: 6 attacks, 2s and 3s, rend 2 damage, 3 anti-hero plus 1 rend, so that's potentially 18 wounds with that weapon. Her Impaling Claws, 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 2 damage, 4. And it drops the Soul Piercer down to 4 attacks when it's wounded. She has a passive ability: subtract 1 from hit rolls for combat attacks that target this unit. And he also has a spell that goes off on a 4, +1 to wound rolls for this unit's attacks that target enemy heroes, +1 to save rolls for attacks made by enemy heroes that target this unit. So seeing a theme here with the hero hunting Shalaxi Hellbane. And if they
Very strong heroes.
Yes.
Very strong.
Yes, and this is hero monsters too. So there's always like those big targets that you want to target down that Shalaxi is really good at dealing with. We have a once per turn ability when the opponent declares a charge ability for a hero within 9 inches of this unit. If this unit is not in combat, it can immediately move 2d6, pass through the combat ranges of enemy units, but it must end that move within half an inch of the hero. If it does so, this charge has been this unit has been charged, and that hero's charge ability has no effect. So if you have a hero within 9 and they declare a charge, you can charge into them. Say no you, and I charge into you, and suddenly you have Shalaxi Hellbane in your hero's face, which is not where you want Shalaxi Hellbane to be if you're facing him. And also, was it what?
That's very cool.
Yeah. I'm seeing that repeating theme of units having a role, and it's very clear what Shalaxi's role is. And given the importance of heroes, you might see her being taken just for that, depending on points. Once per battle in your combat phase, pick a friendly non-hero Hedonites of Slaanesh unit wholly within 12 of this unit to be the target. That target can use 2 fight abilities. After the first fight is used, however, the target has strikes last for the rest of the turn. So fight twice, given out once per battle to someone wholly within 12. Which, given how fragile Slaanesh is, unless they have stacking defensive buffs, that's not always going to come into play. But Shalaxi's pretty tough, and she can give it to herself. So, that's definitely going to come into play at different points. Yeah. Moving on to our friendly Fiends. Fiends come in with 10-inch move, 4 health, 5-up save, typical for Slaanesh. They also have a 6-up ward because they are demons. They have a once per turn ability in the combat phase, any combat phase. Pick an enemy unit in combat on a 4-up that target has strikes last for the rest of the turn. Very important given how fragile this unit is. Disruptive Song, a passive ability. Subtract 1 from casting rolls and unbinding rolls for any enemy wizards while they are within 12 inches of this unit. And they are also beasts, so they have a maximum control of 1. All this is going on a War Scroll with 4 attacks, 4s to hit, 3s to wound, rend 1, d3 damage, anti-monster. That is a companion, so can't be buffed from other abilities. So far it looks like the effects are kind of weird because this guy is so fragile. There's probably ways to buff up companions in some way. So you're not going to see the Disruptive Song being done that much. You might take a unit of this just in case you have a wizard in your face. But I don't see these things synergizing super well. Strikes Last is really nice, but it's on a 4-up. So that's my thoughts on that. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on these beasts.
I think that it is a psychological thing. If you go into this unit and then you get strikes last off on them with the new range for attacks, there could very well maybe a unit that is right behind that unit that can fight. whatever
Yeah.
charges it.
So you would just put these guys around like Shalaxi or some other greater demon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're a tech piece. I mean, if you go in first and then you get hit, you're losing models in your own turn. That could be problematic.
That's a really good point. All right, moving on to our next War Scroll. Simbaresh Twin Souls. These guys have a 6-inch move, 2 health, 4 up slave save, which is really tanky for Slaanesh. They have no ward. They have a passive, Ego-Driven Excess. If they did not charge this turn, subtract 1 from the attack's characteristics of melee weapons used by enemy units while they are in combat with this unit. And another passive, Fiendish Reflexes. If this unit did not charge this turn, it has a ward of 5 up while it is in combat. It's got 4 attacks apiece, 3s and 4s, rend 1/1 damage. This is again another War Scroll that we see a very specific role as a defensive one, which, given how fragile Slaanesh is, we're starting to see some of the defensive buffs come into play. So you might have spots where you can use these guys, and they would be able to give you a lot more, more defense than your opponent might expect going into Slaanesh. Our final War Scroll here is their terrain, the terrain piece, the Fane of Slaanesh. Pick a friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh unit wholly within 12 of this terrain feature to be the target. Allocate D3 damage points to the target, then pick one of the following effects to apply until the start of your next turn. +1 to wound rolls for the target's combat attacks. +1 to run rolls and charge rolls for the target. +1 to casting rolls and unbinding rolls for the target. So you're buffing up through pain with this terrain piece. This also applies to, we saw some of the other abilities that added damage and hit and wound when somebody is wounded. So this is a way to wound your own unit so they can get the buffs that they need going into the enemy. Which I really like. It does something. It has a 6-up ward, 4-up save, and 10 health. All right. We also have a spearhead for the Seekers, Slickblade Seekers. We don't know if this is going to be too close to how it is in 4th. We're going to find out very soon. But they have a 12-inch move. I think is down from 14. 4 health, 5-up save, no ward. 3s and 4s on everything. They're fighting like elves. Rend 1, +1 damage on the charge. So typical for shock cavalry. And you can reroll charges for this unit. So fast, hits hard, and it's pretty fragile. Typical for Slaanesh. That's the content bit of Slaanesh. You guys have any final thought, any major thoughts, things that stood out to you guys, or things you wanted to touch on?
I think that the new terrain feature rules are fantastic. You're going to be wanting to use some of that stuff. Taking a couple damage, so maybe Shalaxi can get a bonus to charge when she charges a hero that's coming at her is cool. Being +1 to hit and wound, having the debuffs. There's some interesting stuff in there. I think that it can all kind of snowball and cause your opponent some problems. I've played Slaanesh in tournament a few times, and those debuffs give them a shocking amount of resilience depending on how full send you are into their army, and sometimes it can really cost you when you're trying to get like a clutch combat off, or if you're trying to complete a battle tactic that revolves around destroying units.
All right, yeah, that this piece of terrain is very valuable. I can see a lot of these buffs kind of hint at maybe a bunch of stacking defensive buffs as well as offensive buffs for Slaanesh, which could make them surprisingly tanky, which is what you want them to be. Michael, did you have any other thoughts on this faction?
So I like that they're trying to streamline the dice and the temptation dice. It always felt awkward to be physically offering people dice and be like, temptation dice, Temptation dice. Temptation dice. If there were so many times it came up that it felt really weird. But the fact that your opponent can just auto auto charge 12 if you give them too many temptation dices has got to get immediately fixed, because that's clearly not, they didn't think that through.
Yeah.
Like that needs to get fixed immediately. Um, maybe it's they can only use one temptation dice at a time or something, so then they have a very reasonable charge. But just auto charging 12 we cannot allow it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Other than
think.
that, I think it looks cool. I'm excited to see it. We'll see what the whole battle tome looks like. Let's get into the next book, because I think we get to look at Kruleboyz, right?
Yes, sir. Kruleboyz up next. Michael, why don't you guide us through this one?
Oh, guys, I am excited about Kruleboyz. There's a lot going on here. Um, so the passive is are the dirty tricks, and we get to use one dirty trick ability per phase. The effect of the dirty trick is only applied if you make a successful dirty trick roll. So you get your first dirty trick on a 2-up, and then a 3-up, and a 4-up, and a 5-up. So you can just get all sorts of dirty tricks. But you should consistently be getting at least one or two, which I like, because before we got one, and it was bad. Right? So now we have multiple that we can be doing all sorts of times, and they're good, which is awesome. So there's Lethal Surprise, uh, which inflicts D3 mortal wounds, and then the charging unit that comes into that unit doesn't get the bonus damage for charging in. Awesome. Awesome. Just turning off cavalry sounds very good in certain situations. We see Venom Encrusted Weapons has moved to a dirty trick now, which is very interesting. It's no longer a army-wide rule. It's now just a dirty trick. Hints that we're not going to be just dumping mortals on people anymore, which is arguably a good thing. Maybe Kruleboyz shouldn't do 40 mortal wounds a turn. That's very hard to balance. And then we have Sneaky Sneakin', which is the next dirty trick. And you get to pick a Kruleboyz infantry unit, and it just gets to teleport. Awesome.
Yep. Just tied to terrain.
Very, very cool. Once per turn, any movement phase. Any movement phase. Your opponent's phase, my phase, I can just go bloop. There's some gut rippers in the back line. Very cool. Is that an open objective? It's mine. I love that. And then we have Noisy Racket, which is a great one. It just hands out fight last. Which we definitely like. Anytime you can hand out fight last is great. So you can see that some of these you're going to be wanting to do all of the time. Some of them are going to be very situational, but they all have use and they're all good. All of these are better than what we currently have, and I love that.
Yeah. My favorite name is Sneaky Sneakin'.
Sneaky Sneakin'. So let's go down and look at the battle formations. They're showing the Kruleboyz Claw. And this is while Kruleboyz units are wholly within 3 inches of a terrain feature, they're not visible to enemy units that are more than 12 inches away from them. This is really great for overall durability. It does come up less in games than you think it does. It just protects you from really, really shooty armies, but a lot of things are going to be shooting at close range, so
Yeah.
It definitely protects you from magic, which is cool. I like that. And then the other battle formations that it talks about is where to go.
So we have specially fletched bolts ready for when ranged units need to pick off distant targets. Focus on stealth and mobility to better ambush the enemy and steal their shiniest stuff. Or go to battle with a menagerie of fearsome war beasts.
So we'll have something that's focused on bolt boys and shooting, have something that's focused around sneaking around the battlefield, and have something about all of the big monsters that they have, because they have a lot of really cool ones. So I like that they're teasing that a little bit. Moving on to the Lore of the Swamp, we retain Choking Mist as a spell, and it's pretty much the same. It's a casting value of a 7. It's an 18-inch range, and then it's -1 from the attack characteristics of the target's weapons until the end of your next turn. Very little change for the Choking Mist. Very, very similar to how it currently exists.
Moving on.
And then we get to see Gabi, my main man Gabi, is here. He still has a mighty move of 12 inches. He's got 14 wounds on a 5-up save and a 5 control, so he's still very fragile. He retains his 6-up ward.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see a lot of his stuff now has the anti-wizard keyword. So he's going to be getting +1 rend when he's going into wizards, which is kind of cool. It keeps with that whole anti-wizard theme that he already has. He's not really much of a fighter to talk about. You know, he's got 3 terrible attacks with his staff, 7 fairly okay attacks with some claws, and then 1 big stinger attack that is legitimately good, but since it hits on a 3, it's never going to hit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then he has his Screaming Mandrake, which is now a once per battle reaction. So for once per battle, when we use the Unbind ability, you can unbind on 3d6 instead of 2d6, but it doesn't explode the heads of wizards like it used to.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a not monstrous rampage. It's just a rampage now. So we called Crush to Death. We roll the dice. If the dice exceeds the target's health, 1 model in the unit is slain. Pretty helpful. But if you're chasing down wizards, that doesn't synergize super well with that, right? Like, I'm out here wizard hunting and then still trying to crush little guys. We have a passive. Each time this unit unbinds a spell, inflict D3 mortal damage on the caster. If the unbind roll was 10 plus, D6 mortal damage. Oh, good. We still blow up wizards' heads. I like that. I was a little sad when I was reading it and thought that we didn't blow up heads.
But the
And
3d6
then
is...
finally we have our War Scroll spell, Strangle Hex, to cast value of 6, and it's just gonna dump some mortals. We roll a number of dice equal to the target's health characteristic to a max of 10. For each 5-up or each 4-up, inflict 1 mortal damage on the target, and that's a massive 18-inch range on that spell. So imagine there's a monster coming at you, and on your turn, you spend a command point to cast a spell. You cast this spell, do 5 mortal wounds to it. Then the next turn, you cast this on your turn and do another 5 mortal wounds to it. So you've very quickly done 10 damage to a monster very, very quickly. This is great. Absolutely great. Next up, we have a Killaboss who just made it to the tabletop, so I'm kind of excited to see his War Scroll. It's the Killaboss on the Gnash Tooth. He's got a 3-up save, 10-inch move, and 10 health. Not much of a combat profile. 3's 3's, Ren 1, 2 damage. And then 4's 3's, Ren 1, 2 damage. He's a nice little buff piece, though, because he's giving a +1 to hit aura for Kruleboyz infantry that are wholly within 12. So, 1 second, I got better. So that +1 to hit aura could be very helpful if you're running a lot of Kruleboy gut rippers and you're trying to just dump mortals on people. And then he can pick a Kruleboyz unit wholly within 9 of him and add 3 to the target's control store until the start of your next turn. So he's going to be really good to just, again, move up with like a big block of gut rippers and just try and control units, control points, and things like that.
Cool.
Next up, we're looking at the Merc Knob, who I do have a Merc Knob painted, and it has never seen the tabletop. So we'll see if it's any better in this edition. It's got a 4-up save, 6 health, and a 5-inch move. Pretty standard combat profile, 4 attacks. 4s, 3s, rend 1/2 damage. He does some mortals if he has crits. He gives out a ward of 6 up if for Kruleboyz units while they're wholly within 12 of him. That could be good on, say, 20 gut rippas with 40 wounds, giving him a 6 up ward. But at the same time, I think Mystic Shield now gives a 6 up ward. So you could just give your gut rippas a 6 up ward with a spell. Do you really need this guy? I don't know. And then he can, on a 2 through 5, he can do a mortal to somebody. I'm a little underwhelmed with this War Scroll.
Yeah. Pretty similar to where he was in third.
Yeah, which is why he's never been on the tabletop.
Yep.
Next up, we have Gut Rippas. These are supposed to be the core bulk of our army, and they are still only a 5 up save. They're 2 wounds, 5-inch move, and a single control. The Stickas or Hakkas have been moved in the same profile, so it doesn't matter anymore if you have the swords or the spears. They're 2 attacks, they're 4s and 3s, they're no rend, and they're crit mortal wounds. And then their Scary Tactics, which was their Scare Shields before, is just now on a 3 up. Subtract 1 for hit rolls for attacks made by non-hero units for the rest of the turn. So, I don't know, man. Like, I've taken 20 Gut Rippas before, and they don't, even with crit mortals, that doesn't do enough damage to kill things. It's a big wound sink, but there's still plenty of stuff that can pick up that unit. So I'm a little nervous that these guys are still not going to be strong enough to be doing what you want them to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then we have their 1 spearhead scroll, the Beast Skewer Killbow.
Okie dokie. So it got an extra shot. So it's a 24-inch range, which is what it is now. It's 2 shots instead of 1. Hits on 4s, wounds on 2. It's rend 2, it's d6 damage, and it's crit auto wound instead of crit auto mortals. And then the skewered has changed. The skewered rule was really weird before. Now it's just if you're targeting a monster, it's just flat 6 damage, which is arguably significantly better than trying to get more damage by rolling and blah, 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 blah. You just flat 6 damage against a monster is really big. I mean, this seems like if you got a monster staring at you and you have Gobsprack in the back doing mortals to it, and this thing shooting in the face, you could reliably take down a monster in 1 or 2 turns.
Yep. Puts them on the similar archetype where they are now, or previously where they weren't good into many people, but if Archaon's present, he just dies.
Dead.
All right, David, did you have any thoughts on the Kruleboyz?
I think Gobsprack's War Scroll is fantastic. I think that the dirty tricks are very powerful, especially if you want to hold out for a specific thing, like teleport a unit away when somebody's fixing to charge it. You just don't do anything else, and then wait for the charge phase, and then on a 2-up you go, or a movement phase, and on a 2-up you just go bye-bye, and then, strike last. You're going to have to like triple and quadruple charge things because you might be strike last. So yeah, very good. I think getting crit mortals on 5s is still very good. So that's cool. But you have to pick 1 unit. But the utility that they have is phenomenal. And the damage output that they have can be crushing, especially into specific unit types. So I think they've done a good job with this. Depending on where that infantry is pointed, I'm not too worried about Gut Rippas. They're basically just screens anyway. I don't think we're going to see resiliency come out of this army. That's just not the type of army it is. But the fact that they're going to be so squirrely and they have this great little laundry list of tools that they can use is a big deal. So I think they're going to be pretty powerful, honestly.
Yeah. For me personally, I like the kind of the destruction theme of these strategy things, where they up the effect of a lot of the dirty tricks and some of the other special rules, but they made them all on dice rolls. So it feels that you kind of have that gambly sort of destruction feel that you get, but you're doing tricks instead of doing massive charges. I think that they still have the issue of being an archetype that's relatively slow and also relatively weak, which is going to be rough into a lot of matchups. But they've got a lot of counterplay and a lot of just tactical things that I think a lot of good players are going to surprise people and going to be able to do really well with them. All right.
Agreed.
Yeah. Moving into our next faction focus, the Sylvaneth. Michael or David, which one do you want to do the Sylvaneth?
I would like Michael to cover the Sylvaneth.
All right. That makes a lot of sense. We will go on to their battle traits.
Perfect. Okay, so battle traits have wildly changed. Let's start up with Endless Growth. Endless Growth, pick a number of friendly Sylvaneth units within 6 inches of Awakened Wildwoods to be a target. They heal D3. So we see a reduction of range, but an increase in healing. Cool. Strike and Fade is now end of any turn. Same was the healing. 6-inch range instead of 9-inch range. Remove the unit and set up wholly outside of 9 and within not 6 of a tree. So they're increasing the power and adding a restriction of the 6-inch range.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Walk the Hidden Paths. This is once per turn in your movement phase. Pick something within 6 inches of a tree. Teleport it to another Awakened Wildwood, wholly within 6 inches of a different Wildwood, outside of 9 of a tree. So right off the bat, we're seeing a pretty significant restriction in how far you can be away from those trees, how far you can move. We already know from a different article that we are only getting 3 trees on the tabletop anywhere, and we don't see anything about overgrowns. So we got that going for us. Let's keep going before I give like a final thought on it.
Battle formations. Lords of the Clan.
Lords of the Clan is insanely good. I just keep thinking about how strong this is. If you have a Sylvaneth monster, they heal flat 3 instead of D3. So all your Tree Lords, your Durthus, your Drishas, they're hanging out next to a tree in my turn and your turn. They're healing flat 3, which means if you don't one-shot my monster, it's going to be perfectly fine before you get to fight it again, which is very strong.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And then what are they teasing for other
So it looks like we
other
have
formations?
smaller forest spirits protect their habitats with bloodthirsty vigor, probably the revenants, while malevolent outcasts terrify their opponents. So some buffs to OC for Drycha's peers. And Alariel's elite cavalry swiftly run down their foes without mercy. So it's probably bugs. Yep. On to the Arcana and Incantations, the Tree Song.
So, and they've already shown this one before, so I was kind of disappointed that they showed it again. It's the unlimited spell. Cast 3 of these. 2d6, cast value of 6. You can pick a tree and set it up as long as there are 3 or less trees. Or if there's already 3 trees, you can heal 3 to each friendly wildwood, right? Because your opponent can destroy your wildwoods. But what's probably more effective than destroying your wildwoods is to just stand on top of your wildwoods so you can't teleport around them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what I would probably do. I'm just going to zone out your wildwood after you've casted it. Good for you.
Hooray. Yeah. All right, moving on to Alariel, the Ever Queen. See if she's still the Ever Queen, not the Never Queen.
Alarielle the Everqueen, if you want to go buy, or if you want to play Sylvaneth and you don't have Alarielle, go buy Alarielle. This is a legitimately good war scroll that you can build an army around right away. Right away. She moves very fast, 14 inches. She has 16 health on a 3-up save. Control value 5. She fights quite well. She has the Spear of Kurnoth, which is 3/3s, Rend 2, 2 damage. And then 6 attacks with the Great Antlers of her Beetle, which is a huge increase. And those are 4s, 2s, Rend 2, 4 damage. So she hits hard in combat. She's very fast, so she's going to be able to move around anything. One thing to note, her base size is too big. She does not benefit from her battle traits because she's bigger than 6 inches. So she cannot teleport through the trees. She cannot heal through the trees. Clearly needs to get fixed. Any hero phase or life bloom, she gets to pick one of the following effects. She can add 1 to casting, or she can heal 2d3. So she's going to be very hard to kill. And she's going to be properly casting her spells, which is great. She keeps Metamorphosis, which is a wonderful spell. Cast value 7, she rolls 2d6. And then she inflicts 2d3 mortal damage to things. If she kills it, it turns into a beautiful tree.
Yay.
Awesome. Yay! I'm going to talk about Living Battering Ram first, and then we'll do Rite of Life last. Living Battering Ram is just a monstrous rampage that on a 3-up you do not many mortal wounds. So it could be 3, 4, 5, or 6 mortal wounds, which is great. We haven't seen a monstrous action like that before. Rite of Life is why you can build around her, though. She's a Loon Shrine because, but better. So, when a unit, at the end of your turn, if a unit has died, you can roll a dice. On a 4-up, you can set a replacement unit with half their number of models, rounding up. So, like, if you have 6 Kurnoth Hunters, you can bring back 3. You can also bring back a monster and allocate 8 damage to him. And then you can also bring back Alarielle after she's died, which is very cool, very similar to how it currently is, but she now applies this to everything in the army. That's wild. But the problem is you have 3 trees in your army, and if they are zoned out, you can't use this, right? So if there's a bunch of zombies all over that tree, like you can't do it, which makes me very nervous.
Yeah.
Let's keep going on down though. Durthu. They've moved Durthu to more of an anti-monster role. First off, we're going to see that Durthu's Guardian Sword does not bracket anymore. It used to bracket very, very hard. He hits on 3s, he wounds on 2s now, which is an improvement. It's Rend 2 and 5 damage. It used to be 6 damage. But he gets +1 Rend if he's going into monsters. 4 attacks instead of right now with his Guardian Sword, you can get up to 7. So they've reduced how high he can go, but they've made him a little bit more consistent. So I think that's a fair trade. Arguably, he has a terrible rampage. Pick an enemy monster. On a 3-up, subtract 1 from the attack characteristics of the target's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. It's not very good.
Would that affect companions? Because that would make sense that it would, but it doesn't specify.
My thought was that it did not.
Yeah.
And then his passive is add 1 to hit rolls for his combat attacks while the target is within 3 inches of Awakened Wildwood. So what you could do is you could use Tree Song in your turn or in the opponent's turn. You could drop a tree near them, and then send in Durthy. You could do that, which could be legitimately interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Looking down at the Spite Revenants, these guys continue to be woeful and uninteresting. They hit on 5s, they wound on 5s, or try this again. They have a 5-up save and a 5-inch move. They're 2 health apiece. They have 3 attacks each, 3s, 4s, crit mortals, which is almost exactly the same as they were. And on a 3-up, the enemy infantry unit can't use commands. Not very good. They're not going to do enough damage for that to affect morale. They're trying to do crit mortals, so that's not going to affect armor saves. Like, it's not very good.
Yeah.
Spite Lancers are very interesting because they have a significant output now. We see +1 charge damage and anti-cavalry on the lances, and +1 charge damage on the mandibles. So that's a lot of attacks at damage 2, +1 rend. They have a roll, and I like that a lot. They give out on a 3-up strike first to themselves, which they used to just have, period. And then they heal at the end of any turn, they heal 3. So they could be healing 3 plus D3.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. But I also like that they could be independent operators. These guys don't have to be standing next to a tree like everything else in the army does. They can rush out and go do something else, still be healing, still be doing its thing, which is something that Sylvaneth kind of lack, right? So they fill a role where they can go hit that flank over on the side while the rest of the army is doing this one thing.
Yeah. I'll bet they pair well with Belthanos. But I gotta say, something about this War Scroll really bugs me.
Oh,
All right, moving on to the
great.
Kurnoth Hunters in the Spearhead.
Kurnoth Hunters in Spearhead. Kurnoth Hunters with bows. I love Kurnoth Hunters. I do not like Kurnoth Hunters with bows. Fight me in the comments. They're 4 wounds, 5 health, 5-inch move, and they control 2. That's a downgrade. They used to be 3-up save. So hopefully we're not paying for that 3. Hopefully we're going to see a point reduction because they went down a point in save. But I'm nervous that now other Kurnoths are going to be a 4-up save. Their great bow has been drastically reduced in range. It was 30 inches. It's now 18. Still only 2 shots, but they hit on 3s now. They used to hit on 4s. So 3s, 3s, rend 1, 2 damage. Which is firmly not interesting from a unit of 3. Right? That's not a lot of shots. It's not a lot of output. And what's cute is while this unit is contesting an objective, they give out an aura of 6-up ward for other units that contest objectives. But again, now objectives are this friggin' big, you know? So like, this isn't affecting your whole army like it would have in the current edition. It's affecting them and maybe a unit of Spite Revenants or something. Like it's not giving an aura to the things that you want it to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, David, as
So
somebody who hates... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Interrupted you.
So my opinion on this was that the thing that I was thinking that you might be doing in this army differently than I would now is having a tree that's home base and then one tree that you're moving to.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're using your army to move forward towards that tree and then using your strike and fade to come back to your home base in your opponent's turn. So it's more of a defensive response than like trying to strike offensively like I currently do.
Yeah. David, as somebody who hates trees, what do you think about this, how Sylvaneth have evolved?
I think this is going to make the army a little bit more interactive, but it is going to make it more difficult to manage your damage output while not taking damage. We're going to have to look at different ways to play the army, how to position your trees on the board, and what your battle strategy is going to be. Being able to strike and fade in both turns is very helpful, but you have to be wholly within 6. So if a person zones those trees by 7 inches, there's no way that you're going to be able to strike and fade after you fight.
Yeah.
So that's rough. There may be some ways to extend that range. We've seen that there's spells to drop the trees. I don't know what it's going to mean. Turn-off hunters taking a armor save reduction that's troublesome. But I think the overall amount of healing and or resurrection with the use of Alariel and some monsters within your list is going to be very difficult to handle for lots of armies. So different, but I see some good stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely see some good stuff in there.
Yeah. For me, it kind of... Yeah, the limitations on the trees is a big one for me because it's kind of nice for hobbyists or for people with the army. You don't have to bring like 3 or 4 wildwoods. You don't have to buy a million trees, but at the same time, it really limits the range of the unit of the army's abilities, which could slow it down. I mean, we haven't seen what Balthanos does, and he could bring a lot more dynamicism as he does now. But yeah, I see a reduction, but like you guys said, there are still ways to play, and we haven't seen everything. We haven't seen the points, so we'll see how it shakes out. As a quick pause, do you guys hear music in the background of my audio? Because my neighbors are playing music really loudly, and I don't know if it's coming through.
I do not.
Okay,
No,
perfect.
I think you're good.
It's like ringing in my ears, so I'm like, okay, but my mic's not picking it up, which is great. All right, moving on to the Soulblight Grave Lords. David, why don't you go through these with us?
I would love to talk about Soulblight Grave Lords. Okay, so let's get into battle traits. The first one is the Hunger. Once per turn, at the end of any turn, pick each friendly vampire that has used a fight ability this turn to be the targets. Heal D3 each target. Heal 2d3 the target if it is instead if it is destroyed an enemy unit this turn using a fight ability. So your vampires are just gonna heal for no apparent reason, not participating. And then if they kill something, they destroyed an enemy unit, they'll get to heal 2d3. So that's kind of fun. I think that they've nerfed it enough to where people won't be as sad when they're playing against Soulblight Gravelord, so that's a good change. Unquiet Dead happens during the deployment phase. Pick a friendly Death Rattle or Deadwalkers unit that's not been deployed. Set it up in reserve in the grave. It's now been deployed. You cannot set up more friendly units in the grave than there are on the battlefield. That's similar to how you put them in reserve already.
Mm-hmm.
And then in your movement phase, you can use this ability called the Rising Dead. Pick a friendly unit that's in the grave, and then deploy it on the battlefield. Only within 6 inches of a terrain feature and more than 9 from all enemy units. So, no more grave sites, which is good. I think being able to just pop out of some terrain is cool. You can zone it, much like the trees. If you are wrapped around a terrain feature, they're not going to be able to just pop up over there. It's kind of hard to do with certain types of terrain, and you have to be more than 9 inches away. So we'll see how that works out.
Mm-hmm.
Once per turn in any hero phase, you can use Deathly Invocation. Pick a friendly Soulblight Gravelord's hero to use this ability. Then you can pick up to 3 Death Rattle or Deadwalker units within 12 inches of that hero to be the target. So we're talking about dogs, zombies, and all the different flavors of skeletons. So if the target is damaged, you can heal 3. If the target is not damaged, you can return a number of slain models to it with a combined health characteristic of up to 3. So that's great. That's some healing that you get in the hero phase because they're a death army. Pretty straightforward, very similar, tiny little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And then once per turn, in any movement phase, you can use Endless Legions. Pick a friendly non-unique Death Rattle or Deadwalker unit that started the battle with 2 or more models and that has been destroyed. So pick a destroyed unit. Set up a replacement unit with half the number of models from the target unit, wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Soulblight Gravelord's hero, or wholly within 6 inches of a terrain feature. It must be set up more than 9 from all enemy units. If it's your movement phase, you can set up the replacement unit more than 3 inches from all enemy units. But if you set it up, you cannot charge. This is very similar. So there's 2 main reasons, or 2 main ways that you summon. You summon in the opponent's turn to put a screen up. You summon in your turn to put, or I'm sorry, or you summon in your turn to put a screen up nice and close. And if there's gaps, you can do this 3 inches away, which is fantastic. So you can just put stuff in the way. And that's what makes a good Soulblight player, is understanding how to use those little half-strength units as screens and to manipulate movement while you're getting your hammers positioned and not dying and healing and all that stuff. I think they're going to play fantastic in this edition. They always have, just because of the nature of their army. And I think that they did not change their kind of core identity with these battle traits, so I'm happy with them. Very excited to play this army.
Yeah. Moving on to our first, to our battle formation, the Death March.
Height of Bone and Blades. Add 1 to the Ren characteristic of melee weapons used by Death Rattle units that charge in the same turn for attacks that target a unit that has fewer models than the attacking unit. So, Graveguard.
Oh, good lord.
To add 1 to the Ren characteristic of Graveguard with their melee weapons, if they charged, and they target a unit that has fewer models than them. So you take 20 Graveguard, and you charge, and they do a bunch of damage.
Yeah.
That's great. That seems like just Graveguard. So that's what that's going to be for. The little skeletons getting extra run, we'll see. But that can be very strong. I like it.
All right, and the other formations include convocations of spellcasters who draw on forbidden powers to enhance their deathly invocations. War parties composed of primarily vampire lords making use of their spellcasting and combat prowess to bring ruin to their foes, while others use hundreds of Deadwalker zombies in an effort to suffocate resistance. So we're still going to see some sub-faction for zombie spam, so it's going to be interesting to see how that comes up. Any thoughts on the other ones?
We'll just have to wait and see. It's a mystery.
Yes. All right.
Let's look at my favorite spell that has changed completely. Vile Transference used to be a massive damage spell against multi-wounded heroes and monsters. And if it was a super cast, you would do mortals on 4s instead of 5s. Now it has a different use. So you pick a friendly Soulblight Gravelord's wizard to cast this spell. Pick a visible enemy unit within 18 inches of them that has not been picked as the target of this ability this turn. So you can only do it once to a unit, even though it's unlimited. That's interesting. Then roll 2 dice. And on a 7, you're going to get to roll a number of dice equal to the number of models in the target unit. For each 6, inflict 1 mortal damage on that unit. If any enemy models were slain by this spell, you can heal D3 to the caster. So you still get the damage, you still get the healing, but now it's for hordes instead of multi-wounded characters or monsters. So backwards. And that's fine. It just gives you utility to deal with multi-models. So it's fine. It's not amazing, but it's fine.
Going on.
Radikar the Beast. I love this guy. I haven't used him very much just because there's so many units in the game, in the army, that are so much better than him, but this is fun. So he moves 8, he has 12 health, 4 plus save, and then he has 5 control. Looking at his melee profile here, he's got Blood Slit Claws. This is 6 attacks, 3s, neg 2, 3, and it's crit mortals. So he's got 6 attacks, and 6s are 3 mortal wounds. That could be pretty spicy on a good roll, or it could do nothing. But the Ren 2 and the 3s makes this pretty reliable damage output for the level of hero that he is. He's like a medium level fighty type of hero. So I'm fine with it. The Bloodborne's Piercing Blades, his companion, are 3s, Rend 1, 2 damage on 6 attacks. So depending on how he's pointed, he has a fair amount of damage output. I mean, this guy could smash out like 20 damage reliably with some buffs. So let's talk about his passive. If this unit charges turn, for the rest of the turn, add 1 to wound rolls for combat attacks made by Death Rattle, Deadwalker, and Bloodborne units while they're wholly within 12 inches of this unit. So I'm looking at this thinking, okay, his melee weapon profile for his companions is Verkos Bloodborne's Piercing Blades, and it says add 1 to wound rolls for Verkos Bloodborne units. So I'm wondering if he's going to buff his own companion unit. I'm not sure. We'll have to look at some core rules, but that's fun. Just getting +1 to wound with like some Graveguard that are hanging out with him, that sounds amazing. Once per turn, end of any turn, the beast will out. If this unit is not in combat, it can move d6. It can move into combat. So don't get too close because he'll just pin you. Mm-hmm. And then he'll hit you. So that's firmly okay. Something you have to think about. It's another psychological piece that you have in your army. And if you don't understand what the unit does, it's going to catch you out. So that's fun. He's a wizard now. So he can do Armor of the Night. Make a casting roll of 2d6, and on a 6+, you can subtract 1 from hit rolls and wound rolls for attacks that target this unit for the rest of the turn. I love that rule. He's just like, oh, -1 to hit and wound.
I feel like you have to sing Armor of the Night, too.
Yes, so I'm really digging this War Scroll, dude. It's so different and kind of weird that I'm into it. Like, I will love to put this guy. He's going to be definitely in the list the first time I run this army in 4th edition. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's scroll down. Does he? Oh, yeah, he has a 6-up ward because he's undead. That's great. And he's a level 1 wizard. He leveled up because nobody was using him, you guys. He was reading books while he was collecting dust in all of your collections, and now he knows how to be a wizard. So that's super cool.
He's a beast for reading.
Yeah. Let's get into Lucavi. Lucavi is a beautiful and amazing model and always has cool rules. So what did they do to her? Well, I'll tell you. She has a 10-inch move. She has 11 HP. It's a 4+ save, which is worse. And she has 5 control. She has the Eskurga Raper, as I call it, but it's the Eskurga Rapier. It's 5 attacks, 3s, -2/2. No special abilities, straight up, en natural. And then she has her Gore-Drenched Talons. 3 attacks, 3s, 2s, -3/3. That's pretty good. That's like if you bring down a Celestin Prime in the first battle round. Same profile. Pretty good. Pretty good. Let's talk about her passive. Subtract 1 from the Ren characteristic of melee weapons used by enemy units while they're in combat with this unit. So it's the same. And it's maybe a little bit better because there's not going to be as much save stacking. So, yeah, that's great. Nightmares Miasma for the win. Let's do your hero phase. She can use the Queen's Diktat. It's a spell. Dictate. Whatever. Pick a visible friendly Soulblight Gravelord's monster. Fully within 12 inches of this unit to be the target, and then roll your 2 dice. And if it's a 6+, you're going to pick one of the target's companion melee weapons and add D3 to the attacks characteristic of that weapon for the rest of the turn. Well, that sounds weak. But wait, there's zombie dragons and terrorgeists roaming about. It would be really nice to add D3 attacks to the attacks characteristic of, like, the Snapping Maw, or maybe, if you like to fish for mortals, the Terrorgeist. So I dig that. She's going to buff monsters. You could just put her in the middle of 3 zombie dragons or terrorgeists and just make this death ball that just goes around and gets buffed. And that's fun. Impaling Talons. If this unit charged, pick an enemy unit in combat with it to be the target. You're going to roll a dice, and if the roll is equal to or less than the target's health characteristic, inflict amount of mortal wound damage to the target equal to the roll. So if you roll less than the target's health characteristic, you're going to do up to 6 mortal wounds. So if you're a monster, you're just going to take d6 mortal wounds. Yeah. That's a fun use of Impaling Talons. It's a rampage. She's got a 6-up ward, and she's a level 1 wizard. She's no smarter than Radikar the Beast now. We're going to get into the Blood Knights. The Blood Knights are bread and butter of the cavalry of the undead. They are not summonable, they are tanky, they do reliable damage output, and they're hard to lift off the board. They move 12 inches. I think that's farther. I might be wrong. I thought they moved 10. I might be confused with Chaos Knights, but whatever. They move 12. They've got 3 HPs, and they have a 3-up save. Their control is only 1, which is kind of a bummer, but they're only 3 wounded, so it makes sense. They have some melee weapons. The Templar weapon is 3 attacks, 3 threes, -1/1, and it's anti-infantry +1 rend, and then they get +1 damage when they charge. So they love charging into infantry. This is very similar to the bugs we were just looking at in the last faction focus. It's very similar to what cavalry has done all along. They get extra rend and damage when they charge. Then they have some nightmare hooves and teeths. They hit on 5s because they're horses, and horses are supposed to suck. That way you can get really excited when they actually do some damage. And they wound on 3s, single damage. And their passive is Riders of Ruin. When this unit moves, it can pass through models in enemy infantry units and can pass through the combat ranges of enemy infantry units, but it cannot end a move in combat unless specified in the ability used. So let's talk about Trampled to Dust. Pick an enemy unit that this unit pass across this turn to be the target. Roll a d3, and you might do 2 or 3 mortal wounds, depending on the roll. So they run over infantry, and then they charge into them, and they get extra random damage, and they kill infantry. That's very similar to what they were doing already. 3 wounds on a 3-up save is great. They're going to retain that. It's not a whole lot of changes there.
Yep. Their whole identity is stomping on the little guy.
Absolutely.
Like Disney.
We're going to be looking at a unit that nobody uses, and we'll see if you guys in the comments think anybody's going to be using these now. So Vargeists, 12-inch move, 4 HPs, 5-up save, 1 control, and they have a pretty okay melee profile. Remember, there's 3 of these dudes in a unit. 3 attacks, 4s, 3s, -1/2. And they have exploding 6s. Now you have once per turn in your movement phase, you can do Death's Descent. And if this unit isn't in combat, you can remove it from the battlefield and set it up again on the battlefield from all enemy units. So they are now reliable objective grabbers and harassing chaff. They're going to die fast, and they're not going to be able to stand up to hammers. Mm-hmm. But they have a clear battlefield role. It fits because they're winged beasts that they would fly somewhere else if they're not in combat. It's going to be a really good way to get battle tactics, maybe, depending on what the battle tactics are. They have a 6-up ward. And that's the Vargeist, man. Pretty okay with giving the ability to just teleport.
Mm-hmm. All right, and going into our one little war scroll here, we got Death Rattle Skeletons. Super exciting.
Oh yeah, remember, if you take that other detachment that we were talking about, or I'm sorry, battle formation that we were talking about, they're going to get some rend. They charge. It's going to be pretty good because this is a stellar war scroll. 4-inch move, 1 health, 5-up save, and 1 control. They have ancient weapons that are 4s, no rend, single damage, unless you charge. Then they're super scary with -1 rend. And then they have the Skeletal Legion ability. This is in any combat phase. For each slain model from this unit, make a Legion roll of d6. For each 5-up, return one slain model to this unit. I like how instead of saying roll a dice for each slain model, they said make a Legion roll. Like it's got like this really interesting word to describe it, but basically they just stand back up. That's very, very similar. You used to get rend if they were outnumbering their opponent or outnumbered, one of the two. I think outnumbering. But that is a skeleton war scroll if I've ever seen one.
Yep, fights like a skeleton. All right, Michael, how do you feel about the new rules for these Soulblight Gravelords?
A little jealous that the Gravelords can heal as much of a tree, but they don't have to be standing within 6 inches of a gravesite, so immediately I'm displeased. While we were talking about the little objective grabbers and their ability to teleport around, I was kicking around upstairs that I wonder how useful those kind of units are going to be moving forward because objective sizes are going to be so much smaller. So in third, we have this big 12-inch pie plate. So if I have one small unit towing a side of an objective, I can teleport across the objective and snag it from him on the other side. This happens all the time in tournament play. But now one hero towing an objective zones a whole objective. You can't come on that objective at all. So now you have to be able to tow, like if a hero's towing an objective and you take an objective monkey and teleport, you now have to come and fight that guy on that objective. You can't just sneak it out from him.
Yeah.
I'm concerned that it's going to be so easy to zone objectives that these little objective monkey guys will become less valuable.
Agreed. They're going to have to be doing battle tactics and maybe snagging objectives that are completely deserted. So we need more information.
Yeah.
I hope that they're impactful because, I mean, outside of a couple fringe cases in tournament play, people aren't really hot on Vargeists when you have like fell bats that move 1,000 inches and are cheaper and do like the same amount of damage. They just don't really have a role, man. So I'm excited to see what happens with them. On a whole, like looking at the whole scheme of things, you still have vampires that are going to be ridiculously hard to kill and to deal with. You're going to have high damage monster output. You're going to have ways to buff and debuff your opponent, and you're going to have tons of board control because you have 1,000 models on the board. They're powerful. They're always going to be powerful unless they just start their points too high. But hopefully they won't make the mistake they did in third and make everything pointed really low. Because Legion of Blood was silly good for months, and they just kept nerfing it and nerfing it. And I still, yesterday, at the conclusion of the Rose City Rampage Get Wrecked GT, that's a lot of words, but I said it. Anyway, game 4 yesterday, I played Legion of Blood. They've been nerfed multiple times, and I still barely won by a couple points. So they're very, very good. That's all I got.
Yeah. From my end, they just have that strong archetype that has so many tools, so much board presence, and is hard to kill, and can hit pretty hard. I do like the getting rid of the graveyards. Once again, you see in 4th edition, you're getting rid of these like janky kind of things you have to explain to your opponent, and they may not know how to deal with it. Now it's just like within 6 inches of a piece of terrain, and your opponent knows, okay, that's where I need to go if I want to zone this out. So, I like the streamlining. There's a little more counterplay from the opponents, a little more understanding, but it's still just so many tools, so many overlaying buffs that they're still going to be very powerful.
Agreed.
All right. With the agreed, we shall move on to our next, These Slaves to Darkness. David, would you like to do this, or do you want me to do this? Because these are your babies.
I will do one more of these. No, wait. I want to do Ironjawz. No, I'll do this one.
Okay.
Being indecisive. These are all armies that I'm very passionate about, so I guess I'll do this one. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's look at the battle traits. It's all about the Eye of the Gods. Each friendly Slaves to Darkness unit that destroyed an enemy unit this turn is a target. Friendly beasts and non-hero monsters cannot be targeted by this ability. Non-hero monsters and friendly beasts. Okay. Make a reward roll of d6 for each target and apply the corresponding effect below. You can re-roll the reward roll for the target, but if you do so and you roll a 1, inflict d3 mortal damage on the target. So you can go for a different ability and maybe take d3 mortal wounds, but that sounds fun. Let's look at the abilities. If you roll a 1, the gods hate you and they beat you mercilessly, and you don't get anything. On a 2, you get to heal 3. That's nice. On a 3, you get to add 1 to hit rolls for the target's combat attacks for the rest of the battle. That's very nice. And then we have the Lurid Aura. The target has a ward of 6 plus the rest of the battle. If the target already has a ward, it has a ward of 5 plus instead. So 5 plus wards are good. Waterer's Might is if you roll a 5, add 1 to the Ren characteristic of the target's melee weapons for the rest of the battle. That's strong. And then Champion of Chaos on a 6, you can pick any of the effects. So on a 1, nothing happens, and on a 6, you get to choose, and you can roll it, but if you re-roll it, but if you roll a 1, you're going to take d3 mortal wounds. That makes Eye of the Gods pretty fun. The same effect can be applied multiple times to a unit. Can you scroll down just a little bit for me, Andrew? The same effect can be applied multiple times to a unit, and more than one effect can apply to a unit at the same time. So it stacks. So Rand 3, anyone?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. Or heal 6, anyone? Whatever. There's a couple different things you can do there. I like it. You're not going to be able to add 2 to hit rolls unless they've changed that mechanic. So there's a couple things there that you're gonna really love. Okay, let's go up a little bit here. Marks of Chaos. So these are the new marks. These are passive abilities that you give to each unit. Friendly Slaves of Darkness units have one of the following effects based on the Mark of Chaos keyword they have. If they're undivided, they get to add 1 to wound rolls for the unit's combat attacks that target a hero or monsters. So if you're undivided, you hate heroes and monsters. That's great. Khorne, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of the unit's melee weapons for the rest of the turn if the unit charged in the same turn. So +1 to attacks. That's pretty cool. You can do that on a counter charge with something, which would be really fun. If they're Tzeentch, they have a 4+ ward against mortal damage inflicted by spells, abilities, and the abilities used by manifestation. So 4+ ward against spells and endlesses. Pretty sweet. If you're Nurgle, you subtract 1 from wound rolls for combat attacks that target them. That's really good. It's still the same and very strong. And Slaanesh, you get to add 1 to run rolls and charge rolls for the unit. So some very similar theme going on there. If a unit with a Mark of Chaos keyword is replaced, the replacement unit has the same Mark of Chaos keyword as a side note. Let's go look at some other things. The battle formation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The God's Wrath Warband. Ironclad Onslaught. Pick an objective that is contested by any friendly units to be the target. Place a defiled token next to the target objective. Then roll a d3 for each enemy unit contesting an objective that has a defiled token on it. Defiled, you guys. On a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on that enemy equal to the roll. So that would be really fun to just walk one Chaos Warrior on there when his whole unit's dead and be like, defiled! And then there's like 2 other units on it. But remember, they're this big. So is that going to be your battle formation that you take? I think not. There's got to be a better one in there than that one.
The other
And
options
we'll just have
we
to wait and
have.
find out.
Yeah. The other options we have are legions brought together under warlords who put their grudges aside to stake their claim on enemy territory. Savage beasts and monsters will fight with unnatural vitality under the command of a demon prince. The Dark Oath chieftains have their own battle formation. And yeah, so we got monsters, something about the enemy territory, and the classic Dark Oath.
Cavalry, Dark Oath, monsters. That's what I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
The demon princes are hot and spicy. We'll get there in a little bit. Let's do some Lore of the Damned. This is a spell. It's not unlimited. You get to do it once, and it's called Demonic Speed. Pick a friendly Slaves of Darkness wizard to cast this spell, and then pick a visible friendly Slaves of Darkness unit that's wholly within 12. Go ahead and roll yourself 2 dice, and on a 7+, for the rest of the turn, you're going to get to charge 3d6. Limitations here, you must be wholly within 12 of the caster. And Demonic Speed used to be only mounted units, and I don't see anything about that, so that could be hot and spicy. That is a pretty basic and could be really good spell, depending on if you cast it at the right time and it doesn't get unbound. So it's pretty good.
Especially for like Chosen.
Oh yeah, dude, we love 3d6 charge and Chosen. Let's look at Be'lakor. He's a badass, and we're gonna talk about how badass his War Scroll is or isn't. He moves 14 inches, he has 14 HPs, and he's got a 4+ save. He has a control of 10. So he's an angrier monster. I like that. His melee weapons include the Blade of Shadows and the Fell Claw and Spearing Tail. Fell Claw and Spearing Tail used to be 2 separate profiles, and they've smushed them together. And made a little sandwich. Blade of Shadows has 8 attacks, 3s, neg 2, and it has crit auto wound. So if you roll a 6 to hit, it's going to auto wound. That's pretty fun. And then the Fell Claw has 2 attacks, 2s, 2. So reliable 4 extra damage. If he charges you, it could be 6 extra damage. That's pretty fun. His passive is battle damage is not his passive. He loses 2 attacks from his sword. That's whatever. Okay. His other passive is Shadow Form. He has a non-rendable 4-up save, which is not good. I wish that he just had a 3-up save or something. But they want him to be shadowy because he's Be'lakor, so he still has that thing. Does he have a 6-up ward?
He
Can you
does.
look and see? He does.
He does
okay.
Have a 6-up ward.
So if you Eye of the Gods him, you can give him a 5-up ward. That could be kind of fun. Okay, once per turn in the enemy combat phase, you can do a Deadly Trap. Pick this unit and up to 2 friendly Slaves of Darkness units within this unit's combat range to be the targets. Roll a dice for each target. On a 4+, that target has strike first for the rest of the turn. So in the enemy combat phase, you get to see if you have strike first and 2 other units have strike first. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's great. And then he gets to clap you with his mediocre damage output profile. Once per battle in the enemy hero phase, you can use his Dark Master ability, which has been rekitted, and this is how it works. You pick a visible enemy unit to be the target. Until the start of your next turn, each time the target is picked to use an ability, roll a dice as a reaction. On a 3+, the ability has no effect. Does that sound pretty similar to you guys?
Yeah, I think it's expanded slightly because it didn't specify what type of ability. It's any ability.
Any ability, yeah. So on a 3, and that is a good point because you couldn't use command abilities before, but you could use abilities. It was a little confusing. This is not confusing. It's like, are you doing something? On a 3-up, you're not. And it says until the start of your next turn. So it still can be active for a long time.
Yep. And everything's an ability now. So that's like everything.
Yes. So that's great. And then he's got a spell called Enfeebled Foe. Pick a visible enemy unit within 18, roll 2 dice. Until the start of your next turn, subtract 1 from hit rolls from the target's combat attacks, and the target's combat attacks cannot score crits. So he turns off crits, and he subtracts 1. That's pretty sweet. I like that. That's a good spell. He's a War Master. He got that War Master keyword. He's a level 2 wizard, and he flies. So Be'lakor still alive and well, doing the annoying thing that people know about and still have a hard time working around. My favorite War Scroll in this army breakdown here is the Demon Prince. His move is now 8 inches. He has 10 health, 3+ save, and control 5. His Hellforged weapons are crit mortals, so he just does 3 mortal wounds, 3 mortal wounds, 3 mortal wounds anytime he rolls a 6. Other than that, it's 3s, 3s, neg 1, 3. And then you get to pick one of the keywords to give him. And you can give him wings or a trophy rack still.
Mm-hmm.
His passive is Airborne Horror. If he has wings, he can move 2 extra inches. That's fun. And then his other passive is if he has the trophy rack. Can you scroll down a little bit for me, Andrew?
Mm-hmm.
If this unit has a trophy rack, its Hellforged weapons also have anti-hero -1 rend. So that could be kind of fun. -2 rend, 3 damage. Mortals, pretty sweet. He's got a 6-up ward, very similar. And then let's read the other half of the War Scroll. In your hero phase, you can do a Ruinous Favor. You can pick a friendly, non-unique unit wholly within 12 inches of this unit that shares a Mark of Chaos keyword with this unit to be the target. So you've got some Nurgle bros and you're a Nurgle bro. And he's like, let me give you a Ruinous Favor. The effect is this. Roll a dice. On a 3+, the target can immediately use the Eye of the Gods ability as if it were the end of the turn and they had destroyed an enemy unit this turn. This is crazy if you have 3 Demon Princes and they're just handing out Ruinous Favors. You know, they're non-unique units. And you're just rolling on the Eye of the Gods table and you're stacking rend up and you're giving yourself wards. And that sounds amazing. Yeah. I think that it's going to be really fun. What do you think, Michael?
Death Ball of Demon Princes sounds like the way you would like to play Slaves to Darkness. So I think that's really cool. I'm also jealous that they don't have to be within 6 inches of a tree. So that's really good.
Yes, they don't have to be anywhere near trees to give each other 5-up wards or heal flat 3 or add rend to their
sounds great.
Their profile.
And if trees count as units,
really, yeah, sounds really, really good.
I love it. I have 4 Demon Princes. Sure, 3 of them are the old derpy ones, but I'm still going to be using them because this is great. I love that. You can give Demon Princes a 5-up ward now because they have a 6-up ward, so the Eye of the Gods roll will give them a 5-er. You could, if you just have 4 of them just chilling, just, you know, just razzing each other up. They're doing a little rally where they talking about the Eye of the Gods, and then you can just pick which ones do what. Like, what kind of buff did you get? You better go over here and fight infantry. What kind of buff did you get here? You better go pin a unit with your 5-up ward, you know? I really like it. Yep. I like it so much.
To me, that's officially an off-the-shelf War Scroll.
Yes, it's shiny and new, yes. Let's talk about Chaos Knights. 10-inch move. They get an extra HP now, which is so good. 3+ save, 1 control. They've got these Cursed Lances that are 3 attacks, 3s, 3s, and they're -1 rend, 2 damage if they charge. They have War Steeds who will no longer do any damage because they're 5s and 3s. You can take a mark. It's going to say that on all the War Scrolls, apparently. And then their special is Impaling Charge. If this unit charges this turn for the rest of the battle, add 1 to the rend. So +1 rend, +1 damage. That's a solid theme with like every cavalry thing we've looked at today.
Yep.
Do they have anything else? No.
Just
that's it.
Yep.
They don't have a ward against mortal wounds anymore. Bummer.
But a reinforced unit is 40 wounds on a 3-up save.
Yeah, they're like, you don't get a ward, you just get an extra wound.
Yep.
So yeah, they're always going to be good. You get the extra attacks if you charge, if you're Khorne, and -1 to wound, and all that fun stuff that you can do with Slaves to Darkness.
Yeah.
The War Scrolls look kind of lame until you start looking at those marks and Eye of the Gods and all that kind of stuff. Things can get nutty.
Yeah. And I personally get annoyed that the +1 rend is a passive ability and not just another thing on the weapon where it's charge +1 damage +1 rend. So it's yeah.
Little inconsistencies, but they all do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you just like writing the same thing in different ways, which is kind of funny. Here's the Marauders, and Michael and I don't think that the Marauders are going to have a place in competitive play, but who knows? Let's talk about them. 5-inch move, 1 health. On a 5-up save with 1 control. They're just the lowest of the low. They're Cities of Sigmar, just a little angrier, a little bit dirtier, running around in their loincloths with their weak raider weapons, which are 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, no rend, single damage. Once per battle in any charge phase, you can take an Oath of the Marauder. If this unit charged this phase and the unmodified charge roll was 8+, you can add 1 to the Rend characteristic of this unit's weapons for the rest of the battle. So, theoretically, you could take 20 of these guys, and you could charge on an 8+ and get some Rend, so you now have, I don't know, 40 attacks, 4s, 3s, -1, 1. And then, if you don't die immediately, you might be able to do it again. Nope, it's once per battle. Never mind. Nope, it's firmly low tier to me. They have a passive called Glorious Death. Well, this unit is wholly within 12 inches of any friendly Dark Oath heroes each time a model in this unit is slain. In combat, roll a dice. On a 5+, inflict a mortal damage on the attacking unit after the fight ability has been resolved. So, like, Michael, this is like a zombie with a weapon, I feel like. What do you think?
It's basically like a zombie with a spear. Yeah.
Yeah, I am not impressed. I'm not impressed at all.
They've gotten rid of so many of the other screens because they got rid of all of the the Warcry bands, that if you want a cheap screen, like, this is going to be your option. But
Sure.
I would rather
I hope they're
just
like
have
40
Gazillion
points.
rooms. Yeah, though they will be competitive at 40 points for sure.
If they're 40 points, I will take 2 units of 20 of them. 'Cause that's how many of those models I have. If they're more than 40 points, I will take 1 unit of 10 to literally soak up a charge at some point during the game. Yeah, not stoked on them. We were stoked on the Dark Oath box, but we had a feeling that they were going to be kind of, paper thinny, and that's what they're looking like. But we'll have to wait and see what all the other rules look like, guys. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just being honest. It's not my favorite scroll. Let's move on.
I personally love that the Oath of the Marauders is once per battle on an 8-up. It's just don't want that to be too powerful.
They're making you paint 1,000 models that have not good rules, and I just don't like it. Let's look at the Chaos Warriors and the Spearhead. It's going to be very similar in real life, in competitive play and in match play. They have a 5-inch move, they have 2 health and a 3+ save, and they're control 1. Their attacks are 2 of them, 3s and 3s, -1/1, with their rune-edged halberd. So I'm assuming that they'll still have halberds or hand weapons, and the hand weapons will have 1 extra attack with no rend or something to that effect. But maybe not. Maybe they just are all called halberds now, even if they're holding swords. You guys have always been lame in combat, so I'm not worried about it. The reason that you take them is because they're really hard to shift. At -1 to wound with 2 wounds apiece on a 3-up save, that's Bargain Town, guys. Bargain Town. Their passive is Bringers of Desolation. They get to add 1 to wound rolls for combat attacks made by this unit that target an enemy unit that is contesting an objective you don't control. So they're +1 to wound in certain situations, like when they're standing on a tiny little objective. That's all I got. Good job, Chaos Warriors.
Were they
Keep
3s
killing
and,
stuff.
Were they 3s and 3s in 3rd edition, or were they 4s and 3s?
They sure were 3s and 3s.
All right.
The halberds maybe weren't, but I've never run the halberds.
Awesome. So, Michael, how do you feel about this army here?
It has a lot of potential. It has a lot of really interesting mechanics. I think it keeps the flavor that it has, and then it's leaning into, like, we're the heavily armored evil army, right? Like, if you want to play the bad guys, and you still want heavily armored, like, these are your guys. I also, like, personally like the lore behind the Slaves of Darkness, is that, after the realms fell, these were the guys who, like, Sigmar left behind, and they're not bad guys. They just did what they had to do to survive. And now we have these Dawnbringers, like, coming into our home turf, and we got to fight them back. So I love that little twist to their lore, and I want to see the death ball of demon princes just running around, man. Like, I think it's so cool. Does Be'lakor have demon prince keyword? Can you do that stuff with Be'lakor?
No, you cannot. It's a non-unique.
Okay.
Non-unique. Be'lakor is
Okay,
gonna
good.
have to go kill something on his own, but yes, dude, this is good, dude.
Yeah.
Pick a
It's very good.
non-unique unit. I just have to read it again because I don't believe how good it is. Pick a friendly non-unique unit, wholly within 12 of this unit, that shares a Mark of Chaos keyword with this unit, and then roll a dice. On a 3-up, the target can use Eye of the Gods. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. I love that the Demon Prince has a purpose, and he's such a customizable like model. Like everybody wants their custom Demon Prince that they made, they converted and whatever. That just yeah, I like that he has a role now, so you won't see him just sitting on shelves with his like the old model with his cheeks exposed and everything.
I love how they gave him crit mortals too, because that's why everybody was taking him, was because like with the talons you can give him an artifact or a command trait. I don't remember which one it is, but he just does mortals on 6s instead of damage, and like now he has a few less attacks, but that's kind of fun. Like
Yeah.
it's scary to go into him if you're a 5 wounded hero and you can't do the damage, and then he just bleh, rolls
Yeah.
2 6s and you're dead. So yeah, dude,
Yeah.
I really like me likey.
Yeah.
A Khorne Demon Prince getting 7 attacks, 3s, and you give him the Eye of the God, so he's Ren 2. So 7 attacks, 3s, Ren 2, 3 damage, like slaps.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. You give him rend every turn when he just
Yeah,
spontaneously
he's
rolls
Ren
on Eye of the
10,000.
God, dude. Like, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, man. Like, it's gonna be so fun. Like, I hope they keep him at like 200 points. Like, don't go crazy and make him like 300 points, because then it's not gonna be as fun. Like, let's just have some fun for a little bit, and then you can nerf him into the ground, because they've been bad for
One-
a really long time, dude.
Yeah.
160.
160.
160.
Oh my God,
Let's
yeah,
really
dude.
let's
Let's
really
go.
go
I
bonkers.
will buy 4 more.
Yeah.
All right, that's enough. I'm rambling.
Yeah. For me personally, yeah, this army, yeah, this has really strong buffs that stack up on bodies that are just amazing. So everything's like so many things that are not Dark Oath have a 3-up save. Be'lakor looks just hard to deal with, all the strikes first stuff. They still have the issue of not having a strong source of getting through a screen, as far as I can see, aside from power through. So they still have the same problems with like certain armies that can screen them out and then countercharge them, can deal with them, but they just have so much tankiness and so many buffs that can continue to buff them that they're going to be pretty intense. The dark opposite of Seraphon, essentially.
Love it.
Yeah, moving on to Ironjawz. I'll go ahead and read this one. Not in an orky voice. I can't sustain it for too long. And it won't sound good to the audience to listen to it for 20 minutes. Alright, moving on to the battle traits. They have Mighty Destroyers. Once per turn, any hero phase, this is no longer a command ability. Pick a friendly Ironjawz unit that was not set up to this turn to be the target. The target can move up to 3 inches. It can move into combat. If it was in combat at the start of the move, it must end that move in combat. So you can end combat with a different unit, I suppose, but you're just going to get a 3-inch move and be in combat. It's essentially a 3-inch murder lust. They also have Ironjawz Wa. Once per battle in your charge phase, pick a friendly Ironjawz hero to be the target for the rest of the turn. The following applies to friendly Ironjawz units while they are wholly within 18 inches of the target. +1 to charge rolls, +1 to the attacks characteristic of those units' melee weapons. And there's a pretty dang good attacks coming up soon. Their battle formation on display is the Ironjawz Brawl. Their passive ability of Natural Disaster is if you pick an unmodified charge roll of 8, if you make an unmodified charge roll of 8+ for a friendly non-hero Ironjawz unit, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of that unit's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. So that's another source of +1 attack. So you can get +2 attack if you roll an 8+ during your Wa. And there might be some sort of 3d6 charge, given the nature of Ironjawz. You might see that somewhere. And their spell is from the Lore of the Weird. This is an unlimited spell. Pick a friendly Ironjawz unit wizard to cast a spell. Pick a visible friendly Ironjawz unit wholly within 12 of them to be the target. Casting roll of 2d6. The target's melee weapons have crit 2 hits for the rest of the turn. So now you have potentially +1 attack, potentially +2 attacks, crit 2 hits, exploding 6s.
And it's unlimited.
And it's unlimited. So you're just going to give everybody exploding 6s if you can.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then you have to take multiple Weird Knob Shamans, though, unless there are other people that are going to be able to cast that for you.
That's true. They don't have big, crazy casters. They just have those little guys. And they probably have some other spells, too, that you want to take. Like Hand of Gork. Gordrak, Fist of Gork. You didn't see this guy before because he has a very similar War Scroll without a unique feature. But we'll see if he comes around in 4th edition. He has a 10-inch move, 20 health, 3-up save, which I think is up from a 4-up. I'm not sure.
It is.
It is. 5 control. Big Teeth's Roar, 8-inch attack, 6 attacks, 2s, 3s, no rend, 1 damage, and he can shoot in combat. It's cute. Melee weapons, Smasha and Cunnin. 8 attacks, 3s, 2s, rend 1, 2 damage, anti-hero +1 rend. Big Teeth's Fist and Tail, 8 attacks, 4s, 2s, rend 1, 3 damage, anti-monster +1 rend. So you're looking at a max damage of 24 plus 16, which is what, 40? Right? Yes, 40. Just by default, before he gets all his +1 attacks and other things.
Very, very good into, like, Bloodthirsters.
Yeah.
You're a hero and a monster. Ouch. It's just going to pummel you into dust.
Just wants to find the biggest thing and smash it down. It's
For
very
sure,
fitting.
dude. For sure. Loving it.
All right, he's got a Monstrous Rampage. Once per turn in the combat phase. Pick an enemy monster, roll a dice. On a 3-up, pick one of the target's weapons. You must pick a companion weapon if it has any. Have the number of attacks characteristics of that weapon for the rest of the turn. So if this goes into my Eidolon, you're going to have the number of fish attacks from 4 to 3. Pretty powerful ability. But
Which way do we round it? Do we round up or down?
rounding.
Let's not
up.
have that conversation again. That was our Discord for like 2 days.
Oh yeah.
You round it up. So if it's 4, it's 3. Okay, case closed.
Thank you.
All right. Voice of Gork, once per battle reaction. When you declared a Wa ability. Until the start of your next turn, add 1 to hit rolls for combat attacks made by friendly Ironjawz units while they are wholly within 18. So now you're +1 attack, +1 to charges, and +1 to hit, which is great for orcs with their 4-ups. Yeah.
+1 to hit, crit 2.
Crit 2, which
+2 to
essentially...
attacks if you make an unmodified charge roll of 8. And if you have Gordrak in your army, you could do some pretty crazy stuff with some stuff.
Yeah.
I'll let you keep going. I'm sorry. I'm just very excited about this.
I know, yeah. Because crit 2 hits is essentially another source of +1 to hit. So you're going to be essentially hitting on 2s with your 4s and 3s orc bodies with +1 attack, which is crazy. End of any turn, strength from victory. If the damage points were allocated to an enemy unit by this unit's combat attacks from this turn, and that enemy unit was destroyed, so he doesn't have to destroy it, but somebody has to destroy it, give this unit a Wa token to a maximum of 3. Till the end of the next turn, +1 to the attacks characteristic of this unit's weapons for each Wa token it has. That doesn't feel super strong for me because it's going to go away at the end of the next turn. It's very conditional on how many units were damaged and destroyed, but it could stack up pretty nicely and you can get extra attacks. This doesn't affect the companions, I imagine, so you're probably just going to be adding to smashing and cunning. So it's kind of cute. Doesn't seem to do too much.
Well, it doesn't say that the Wa tokens go away though. It just says until the end of the next turn, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of this unit's weapons.
Oh, so the Wa tokens don't go away. It just keeps going. Okay.
You just can get 3. So he could have 11 attacks.
Okay.
With each of his things, that's pretty bomb.
Yeah, that is pretty bomb.
He's going to be like 500 points, dude. But I'm just glad that you can take him and not have him die a miserable death because he's like supposed to be the leader of the Orc subfaction, you know, or the Orc subfaction.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yep. Moving on to the War Chanter. This is the wizard that will be giving you those exploding 6s. 4-inch move, 4-up save, 6 health, 2 control. Gork Stick and Mork Stick, 6 attacks, 4s, 3s, Ds 3, no rend. Which you can give a rend on the wall.
He does not give you the exploding 6s.
He doesn't. Oh, he's a priest.
It's a weird knob.
He's a priest. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Looking for the weird knob. Rhythm of Destruction. If any enemy models were slain in this turn by this unit's combat attacks, give this unit D3 ritual points. Not liking it too much given his combat attacks and given his save, and he's just not going to be, and his movement of 4 inches. So that's not going to do much of anything. I guess it all depends on how good the prayers are, which probably are going to be pretty good. He used to be able to hand out +1 damage to one unit, right?
Yeah, he's gonna end up on the shelf, dude.
Yeah, unless the prayers are really special.
No, you need this war beat.
Okay, here's the war beat. On a 4-up, pick a friendly Ironjawz priest to chant this prayer. Pick a visible friendly Ironjawz unit wholly within 12 of them. Make a chanting roll d6. +1 to the damage characteristic of the target's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. If it was an 8+, you can pick up to 2 eligible units to be the target. Okay, so now we're +1 attack, +2 attacks potentially, +1 to hit, +1 damage. We're stacking up on damage.
Yeah, so you hang out in the back. You annoyingly pin your opponent when they get too close to you while you're trying to build up your prayer points, and then you unleash extra damage, crits, extra attacks, and just go in there.
Mm-hmm.
And have the best time ever. It's great.
And who's going to be having that good time is the Brutes. They have a 4-inch move, 3 health, 3-up save, which is up from a 4-up, I'm pretty sure. Brute weapons, 3 attacks, 4s, 3s, rend 1, 2 damage, +1 rend against infantry. 1 in 5 of them can replace the brute weapons with a Gore Choppa, which is 3 attacks, 4s, 3s, rend 2, 3 damage. Their passive ability the name changed to You Messin' or You Messing. The effect is enemy models with a health characteristic of 1 or 2 cannot contest objectives while they are in combat with this unit. So no longer just on the objective, but they have to be in combat. It's a little iffy because they probably won't stay in combat very long with this unit, given the abilities. One thing I noticed personally is that if you reinforce these guys, so you have 2 units, and you're down to the Gore Choppas. You have 2 guys left. You could give them +2 attacks from the various things we've seen so far. So it'll be 5 attacks. You can give them +1 damage, so they could be 4 damage, and then you can give them crit hits, right? So 2 guys that are left can do 5 times 4 times 2 damage. So if you have 2 guys with the Gore Choppas left, they could do 40 damage. to somebody coming into them.
It's wacky and wild, dude.
It's insane.
They're gonna be so gross, dude.
They're gonna be gross, but they have a 4-inch move. That's their main issue. The 3-up save is gonna be big because I used to just shoot these guys off the table with my Ironjawz, and now I'm not gonna be able to do that as well.
Yeah, that's gonna take one auto run, 1 counter charge, and 1 murder lust to get where you need. I mean, mighty destroyers to get where you need.
Yes.
And just to point out, that number's actually even higher, right? Because it's exploding 6s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you roll 10 6s, you just got 20 hits. So it's 20 times 4 damage.
So that's a potential cap of 2 guys left in the unit of 80 damage.
Just
gross.
Like, that's not gonna happen, but it's good lord.
Yeah.
I hope they're 120 points a unit.
I know. Yeah.
That seems about what they're worth.
40 points.
40 points. 40 points.
They're 40 points. I'll take 1,000 of them. Yes.
They'll go into the Dark Oath guys.
God, they're good. I don't know what they were doing with that war scroll, but it's super good, dude.
Yeah, it's absurd. All right, we're going into Big Pig, the Maw Grunto with Hacking Crew. This is not the hero version. This is not the smallest version, but it's the mid tier, right? Mid tier pig. He's got a 10-inch move, 12 health, 3 up save, which is up from a 4 up, 5 control. Melee weapons: Choppas, Kill Choppas, Maw Gruntus Tux, and Maw Gruntus Trotters. So you're going to be rolling a lot of different dice here. 4 Choppas, 4 attacks, 4s, 3s, Rin 1, 2. Kill Choppas, 4s, 3s, 4, Rin 1, 1. Maw Gruntus Tusks, 5 attacks, Rin 2, 2 damage. Maw Gruntus Trotters, 4 attacks, 5s, 2s, D3. Those are both companions. Now, the big thing for him was momentum, which is a really janky rule in third, but we'll see what happens now
It's
in
still
fourth.
kind of janky, but it could be super saucy now.
Yeah.
Can't wait for you to read it, Andrew.
Each time this unit uses a charge ability, it gains 1 momentum point. Each time it uses a run ability, it gains 2 momentum points. It can have a maximum of 3 momentum points at once. Add the number of momentum points to this unit has to the damage characteristic of its Maw Gruntus Tusks. At the end of each battle round, subtract 1 from its momentum points to a minimum of 0. So you're going to run in your turn, get 2. You could countercharge and be up to 3, doing D3 plus 3 on your Maw Gruntus Tusks. So that's 5 attack, D3 plus 2 on your Maw Gruntus Tusks. 5 attacks, 4s, 2s, Ren 2, 2 plus D3 damage, 2 plus 3 5 damage. So
you're looking at the wrong profile. The tusks.
The
so you have
tusks,
5
yeah.
attacks that can be up to 5 damage apiece.
Yeah.
Sure, it hits on 4s, but with an all-out attack or +1 to hit for Mighty Gordrak, your 3s, 2s, neg 2, 5.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch.
And it's so easy to do. You just need to run them for 1 turn and then charge into something. And with 10-inch move, and you want to do the run, like you're going to be in their face. So turn 2, you're going to be hitting really hard.
Then you're going to be carving a path.
And you're going to be carving a path. If he's in combat, once per turn in your movement phase. If he's in combat, you can move a distance up to his move characteristics, 10 inches. Can pass through models and the combat ranges of enemy units, but it cannot in that move in combat. Then pick each enemy unit that this unit has passed across during that move to be the targets. Roll a d3 on a 2-up, inflict the amount of mortal damage each equal to the roll, and then they gain 2 momentum points. Yeah, so it's basically a free power through, and you're gaining momentum points off of it. So
and then you can countercharge.
And you can countercharge, right? So you lose, you charge in, you do 25 damage, you lose a momentum, then you just do this in your movement turn. The next turn, you're back up and ready to charge back in. I think you could charge after this, right? There's nothing that says you can't. So you could just charge back into combat.
Yes.
Wow.
It's really good.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness. And you're through the screen at that point, which is always an issue with Ironjawz, is the screens. So they're the double turn. Oof. Yeah, so they are now a lot tankier and do brutal amounts of damage.
Yeah. I think we're going to see this as a elite pick. I think that we're going to see some points increases across the board, but they're going to be mighty. They're going to do crazy damage. They've got movement shenanigans. Like, if they don't point these guys correctly, they're going to dominate at the beginning because the rules are just so glaringly good that people are going to be like, well, I could figure out how to tech out one of my 5 armies, or I could just play Ironjawz and do this.
Yeah. They feel like Daughters of Cain on a 3-up save.
Yeah.
Insanely good War Scrolls, man. We won't know until we get the whole picture, but wow. Really, really good. I've already said everything I have to say. Well, I kept interrupting you while you were reading the faction focus. So let's see what Michael has to say about it.
I'm just as hyped as you guys are. I really like how well this was designed, and all of these buffs really stack on top of each other really, really nicely. And the orcs don't have to be within 6 inches of a tree to do it. So this is all really good. army rules, and I think it'll translate really, really nicely into the tabletop. Tons of people were excited for this at the tournament. Like we were talking with a lot of people, and they were very excited for the orcs. So as long as they're pointed effectively, um, they could be
Yep.
mighty destroyers.
Yep.
I have one more little note for Michael. It's true they don't have to be within 6 inches of trees to do everything they do, but I'm going to make sure that they are. So that's everything from me.
Oh, lordy. All right, moving on to Khorne. Which one of us wants to take on Khorne? I can read if you like, or David, you're the Khorne guy.
I would love to be the Khorne god guy and talk about Khorne. Is that okay, Michael? Can I talk about Khorne?
I feel like that's a better role for you than me. This is not my army.
It's Khorne.
Let's do it. Khorne is very good right now.
Right
Michael beat them in a tournament yesterday. He didn't care how good they were. But what are they going to do in the 4th edition? Well, let's find out. They have a Blood Tithe ability. It's passive. You start the battle round with no Blood Tithe points, and you earn a Blood Tithe point each time a unit is destroyed, friendly or enemy, same as it ever was. And then we're going to talk about a reaction. Well, we're going to talk about multiple reactions. They have Blood Tithe abilities, and you can use Blood Tithe points to do these abilities. You can only use this ability if you have not used any Blood Tithe abilities this turn. So once per turn, you're going to be able to do an ability. When your opponent declares a spell, you can use 2 Blood Tithe points, and the spell is unbound. That's good. There are rules presently that say a spell cannot be unbound. And the workaround with Khorne was the spell is not successfully cast. So now that it's worded differently, that might be weird. We might need to figure out if you can or can't do that against abilities that cannot be unbound. Who knows? That's later. We'll do Slaughter Triumphant. This is in any movement phase. You can spend 8 Blood Tithe points. So you got to be stacking them up. But you get to add one to the attack characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly Blades of Khorne units for the rest of the battle.
Jeez.
So your whole army is +1 to attack. That's pretty good. Or you can pick a friendly, non-unique Bloodthirster unit that's been destroyed and set up an identical replacement unit on the battlefield more than 9. So for 8 Blood Tithe points, you can resurrect a Bloodthirster. That seems kind of fun. The conversation I was having... Say that?
And it just goes anywhere on the table.
More than 9 from all enemy units, yeah. So you don't have to, like, be next to your shrine or whatever. So that seems really good, but the problem with Bloodthirsters is they don't win games. What wins games is bodies on objectives. So depending on what Bloodthirsters do, what their movement is like, this may be awesome. But, like, I don't know if I'm going to spend 8 Blood Tithe points on this, because there's some other juicy ones. Murderlust. Still around. What does it do? You can pick a target, and you can spend a Blood Tithe point, and you can move it 3 inches into combat. You don't have to roll d6 anymore. It's just 3. It's more reliable for your brain. You can just say, I'm going to move 3. Is that going to get me there? I hope I don't roll a 1, or I hope I don't roll a 2. It's like, nah, I'm just going to go 3 inches. So that's great. That's a good ability. Brass Skull Meteor is in any hero phase. This one costs 4 Blood Tithe points. Pick an enemy unit that is visible to a friendly Blades of Khorne hero to be the target. So you just pick one unit, and then you roll 8 dice and mortals on 3s. So that's a really good way to just crush a hero into the dirt, or to finish a unit off that's a thorn in your side. Like there's one little dude running around, capping objectives and trying to screen for you, that kind of stuff. That's great. It's 4 Blood Tithe points, so you could use this multiple times through a battle. This is a great way to shut down a wizard or whatever. It's similar to how it is now, and it's a good ability.
Yep.
And the last one is Heads Must Roll.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, it is not contingent on a high wounds characteristic.
Yes.
So, yes, better. It's basically like the Lord of Changes spell that he does called Infernal Gateway. You roll 9 dice and it's mortals on 3s, and you a lot of the time take 8 or 9 mortal wounds. So I think this pretty reliably is going to do 6, 7, 8 mortal wounds, and you're going to feel great about it. You're going to feel really good. And then the last one, in any combat phase, you can use Heads Must Roll. 6 blood tithe points will give you the effect of, for the rest of the turn, add 1 to the rend characteristic of melee weapons used by Blade of Khorne units. So it's Awakened Steel, baby. You just get +1 to rend for your army for a turn. That's pretty good for 6. Like, you're controlling the battlefield pretty good. You haven't really lost too many units. You've killed some units, and now your whole army is going to have rend for a whole turn. That's fun.
Going on to the battle formations.
I don't know. I feel like when I'm at 6 blood tithe points, I just wait for 2 more blood tithe points so that I make sure that I get +1 attacks for the rest of the battle. Because +1 attacks for the rest of the battle is way better than +1 rend for a turn.
I guess it just depends on what you're running. If you're running 3 Bloodthirsters and they're all going to be like rend 4 or something crazy, that's cool. Or if you're running a bunch of little dudes that have like 3 attacks apiece, then go for those attacks. You're right. More attacks for the rest of the battle. That's flavor country though, dude. That's really good. And that's a good point.
That's right.
All right, the Khornate Legion.
Butchers of Nations. Once per turn, when you've declared a fight ability for a friendly Blades of Khorne demon unit, you can pick a bloodbound unit that has not used a fight ability this turn, is within 12 inches of the unit using this ability to be the target. The target can be picked to use a fight ability immediately after the fight ability used by this unit has been resolved. So you are getting to activate multiple units in a row. It's the Halo of Blood caked into a detachment. That's pretty good. Only do it once, though. But
And it's Demons to Bloodbound.
Demons to Bloodbound. Okay. All right. I didn't read that enough. It's very wordy.
Yeah.
So yes. Okay. So you take a demon, and then you pick a Bloodbound unit, and then they get to fight afterward. Okay.
Yes.
So a Bloodthirster and some Skull Reapers go a smashing. That sounds fun.
Then other demonic hosts prefer to battle without mortals, gaining resilience to damage by shedding blood to warp reality itself. Mortal armies are more concerned with taking territory and displaying dominance than their supernatural allies, while earth-shaking stampede of juggernauts simply crushes anything before it under their unstoppable charge. So it looks like juggernauts / cavalry, something about taking territory and maybe contesting objectives, and demonic hosts that kill things and gain like armor save or something to be more resilient. Khorne hates sorcery. The Judgments of Khorne. They sure do. This is probably the saddest ever lore or prayer reveal. Because all it's saying is you summon the Hexscourger Skulls on a 4, and you set them up 2 inches within 8 of each other. But
then you don't know what happens. They didn't want to tell us what happens.
But we know we can summon the Hexscourger Skulls.
Okay, so Hexscourger Skulls are going to be summoned, and you're going to have to set them up 8 inches apart. Cool. We'll let you guys know what else they do when they tell us.
It's a spooky tease. All right, going on to our first war scroll, the Bloodthirster.
Yeah, let's see if they have a ward real quick, Andrew. Do they have a ward?
Bloodthirster of Insensate Rage has a ward of 5 up.
Oh, look at that. They have a ward all the time now, baby.
Oh, Lord.
They still move 12. They still have 16 HPs and a 4-up save. They still are 5 control. And this Great Axe of Khorne is the big-ass axe that used to do a bunch of mortal wound damage. What does it do now, though, Dave? Well, it has 5 attacks. It hits on 3s instead of 4s now. It wounds on 2s. It has Rend 2 and 5 damage. But if he's swinging at infantry, It's +1 rend. So he hits infantry on 2s and 2s with all out attack. Rend 3/5. Boom. Gone.
25.
Unit's gone. That's strong. That's really strong. And then he has Outrageous Carnage. Each time an attack made by this unit scores a crit, inflict D3 mortal damage on each enemy unit within 8 inches of it, after the fight ability has been resolved. So it just does mortal wounds within 8 inches.
So he can do 5d3 mortals after fighting?
What's that?
So can he do 5d3 mortals after fighting? Because it's each time an attack made by this unit scores a critical
If you
hit.
roll 5/6s, you're darn right. You're going to take 5d3 mortal wounds to every single unit within 8 inches of it. It's still extremely good, but very swingy. The thing is he's tanky, dude. Like, 16 wounds with a 4-up save and a 5-up ward, that's pretty good, man. And, like, what if Bronze Flesh still exists? Or what if Bronze Flesh is, like, add 1 to ward rolls or something? That'll be really interesting to see. And then once per turn in any charge phase, he can do a Shattering Charge. If this unit charged this turn, pick an enemy unit within an inch of it to be the target. Roll a d3. On a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. If the target's infantry, inflict an additional 3 mortal wounds on it. So it could do 5 mortal wounds to infantry and then hit it with 5 damage attacks that are -3 rend. I mean, this guy hates infantry, dude. And, like, if he goes into, like, a castle and hits that infantry and rolls, like, 4 6s, he's just gonna crush everything, dude. So he did that before. But this is a very good war scroll. The fact that they gave him a static 5-up ward is great. His axe does go down to 3 attacks if he takes 10 or more damage, though, so kind of gets neutered, but you're going to want to be running 2 of these straight at your opponent. I mean, I do. I'm really excited for Bloodthirsters always, so I'm really excited about this scroll.
Good golly, Miss Molly.
Yeah, Andrew, do you hate that war scroll as much as I do?
It gives me insensate rage.
He doesn't even have
Yeah.
to be next to a tree
He
to do the
doesn't.
damage.
I know.
Big axe for that
Hits as
tree,
hard as
too.
Gerthu does, dude.
He hit
Bloodletters.
harder.
Yeah.
He hits harder than
He hits way
Gerthu.
harder.
Into infantry.
Yeah.
Bloodletters, 5-inch move, 2 HPs, 5-up save, control of 1. They have a Hellblade that has crit mortals, and it's 3/3s -1/1. That's very similar. If this unit's in combat, you can return D3 slain models of this unit. That's new. So at the end of any turn, you can just put D3 of these back. So they got the clan rat rule going for them. They're going to be tar pits, dude. Do they have a ward? Do they get
6-up
a
ward.
ward? Look, they got a 6-up ward. So they've got a 5-up save and a 6-up ward on 2 wounds apiece, and you put D3 of them back at the end of every turn. Pretty cool. And there's no more battle shock, so.
Yeah, just get a big block of them and just tar pit something and don't die, which kind of goes against the whole blood tithe thing if they're not dying, but it's nice to have something that doesn't die too.
It says you can. So if you're like, nah,
If you want
also
them
don't have
die.
to roll ward rolls presently, so, you know, you could just let them go if you want. Just let them
That's
die.
true.
Just let the feeling of death wash over them so you can get a blood tithe point and murder lust with your other unit on the other side of the battlefield.
That's even better.
Pretty good stuff, man. This is actually the first time I've looked at all of this stuff, so that's why I'm so hype while I'm reading it. Let's talk about Karanak, and nobody cares, but let's do it anyway. 8-inch move, 7 HPs, 5-up save, and he has a control score of 2. He's terrible with his Savage Maw and his Goreslit Claws. 6 attacks, 4 3s, -1/2. He hates heroes, but he'll die to any hero that touches him. In the deployment phase, you can use Prey of the Blood God. Pick an enemy hero to be this unit's quarry. You can pick a hero in reserve. That's kind of fun. Whatever. Let's do Stalk the Prey. So it says see Stalk the Prey. Okay. If this unit's quarry moved this phase, this unit can move up to 8. Oh, so it like stalks its prey. Okay. All right. We're warming up to the war scroll. It cannot move into combat during any part of that move and must end that move closer to its quarry. So it just like follows you. Like a creepy ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, not being sexist here. And then he has a passive called First of the Pack. Well, this unit is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Fleshhounds unit. Add 2 to charge rolls for this unit. In addition, while any friendly Fleshhounds units are wholly within 12 inches of this unit, they can ignore the effects of the Beast ability. I don't know what the Beast ability is.
That means the whole unit only counts as 1 on an objective, so they become normal.
Okay. And then he can charge 2. He can slingshot into his quarry and then get murdered immediately. Michael, do you think that he would be good if he was within 6 inches of a tree?
B tier doggo, for sure.
So B tier. So B tier right there. He's cool. I've got the model and I love it. But
Yeah.
he's just like there's no place for him. I guess you could sling him into a hero to get a blood tithe point. I'll take him if he's 40 points.
Yeah. Or if you like corn dogs, I guess if you have a bunch of corn dogs, you just take him in there to buff him up. All right, Blood Warriors.
What's going on with the Blood Warriors, you ask?
Before we go for any further, my biggest complaint with the Khorne book is that everything is blood something. And I just want them to just call them, to give them a name that's not Blood Warriors, blood this, blood that, blood. Like, come on, creative team. Give them a slightly more interesting name.
Whoops.
All right, that's it. My gripe is over.
Yes, Blood Gore Murder. I think they need a guy named Blood Gore Murder.
Blood.
Blood.
Blood for the blood.
Okay, let's talk about Warriors. They have a 5-inch move and 2 HPs. They have a 3-up save. 1 control. Each model in this unit is armed with a Gore Axe, so that's the top profile. 3 attacks, 4 threes, -1/1. No special abilities. Don't need special abilities. And then 1 in 10 models can replace their Gore Axe with a Gore Glaive, which is slightly better. 3 attacks, -2/2. So 1 in every 10 is just gonna like hit a little bit harder, and you're gonna be like, oh shoot, that hurt a little bit. And then they've got a passive called No Respite. Each time a model in this unit is slain by a combat attack, and that model was in combat with the attacking unit, roll 2 dice. For each 5+, inflict a mortal damage. So, murder rolls still alive and well. They look very the same to me. I think they were getting tired because this was the last faction focus, and this was like one of the last things they wanted to showcase, and it shows. They're the same. They didn't really change anything. What's in the spearhead, Andrew?
Let's see. We got Mighty Skull Crushers.
Okay. This is the first 2-up save War Scroll we've seen. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Don't think you're wrong.
No, I think you're right.
Okay. They move 8 inches. They have 5 health on a chunky 2-up save. That means a lot nowadays because apparently the save stacking is going to get harder. They have a control score of 2. Their Blood Glaive gives them 3 attacks, 3s, -1. And if they charge, they get +1 damage. The Brazen Hooves are 2 attacks apiece, 4s, 3s, -1 D3. You have companion keyword, obviously. And then in your charge phase, you can do the Brass Stampede. If this unit charged, pick a unit within an inch of it to be target, roll a dice. On a 2+, 1 mortal wound. If this unit charged on a 2+, you do 1 mortal wound.
I could just see him like rushing forward with a tide of flesh and metal, and then just like one guy punches you in the face.
Ouch. That's a terrible rules change. God, let's hope that stays in Spearhead. That's so bad. If this unit charged, pick 1 enemy unit and do 1 mortal wound.
Yeah.
I'm done, dude. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
I could
Is this the end of the stream?
I could see that being a Spearhead thing because you don't have nearly as many models and you don't want to just accidentally override something, but
Dude, that sucks, dude.
so
Okay,
funny.
so let's theory craft a little bit. So that one of the battle formations is going to be revolving around juggernauts, right? Okay, in that battle formation, you'll get to do 1 extra mortal wound, or maybe you'll get to do 1 mortal wound on a 2-up to each unit within an inch, and it will still suck. That's so bad, dude.
Yeah.
Ouch.
All
I
right.
have 9 of those. Doesn't matter.
Well, from my end, it looks like Khorne got away with murder again. It looks like they continue to not like see them as a big deal. They've been kind of the second best army in the game for forever now, and they're probably going to be in the same spot. They just have so much tech. I really like that Murder Lust is not a D6, so you just know to be 6 inches away from any Khorne unit, so they can't Murder Lust into combat with you. That's just reliable and nice for both parties. The Brass Skull, I hate that it's still around. My Turtle hates that it's still around. My Achillean King hates that it's still around. I hate that it's always on a 3-up, not on a 5-up. I just hate it. It's 4 Blood Tithe points, which is pretty easy to get. I hope that they have less ways of getting Blood Tithe. We didn't see a priest that gives them the extra Blood Tithe or a prayer, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's still around. But yeah, these guys have just been top dogs for so long, and I feel like they're just still just sitting there glaring at everybody with like even buffer blood stuff.
Bloodthirsters. Oh
Yeah,
man.
Bloodthirsters.
Well, I'm stoked on it. So
Yeah. As a
Each his
Khorne
own.
player, you guys stoked on it.
I'm a total bro. So I play bro armies like Ironjawz and Khorne. So I'm just a happy camper.
Yes. But I, an intellectual, am mad.
Yeah, you nerdy fish elf. Eichel's indifferent. Eichel's worried about Sylvaneth. Doesn't care about any of these other armies. So thank you for being here, Mike.
No, I'm glad. Like, I'm glad that Khorne feels more like Khorne now. But I'm just so taken aback at that Bloodthirster's War Scroll. Like, everything else in the book was
So
just like,
good,
yeah,
man.
that's fine. But like the blood type points were amazing. The Bloodthirster was amazing, and everything else exists to die so that those things get to work. Right?
Yes.
You're just gonna take chaff and throw them into the grinder so that your Bloodthirster gets to go up and chop it to death. The other thing about the Bloodthirsters is there's going to be one that's anti-infantry. There's going to be another one that's like anti monster. Then there'll be another one that's like anti-hero or wizard or something. And it's going to be you'll have all 3. Moving on.
So fun. Oh my gosh. And just think what Scarbrand is going to do. He's going to do stuff to people. He's going to do dirty things.
Lordy.
He's going to do some touching.
Yep.
That's
He's
for
going to
sure.
touch some stuff. Well, that was really fun, you guys. We made it through all the 7 faction focuses, and it only took us 2 hours and 18 minutes.
Woo! We've been here way longer than we thought we were going to be.
We were, and we always are, but we're happy that everyone's watching, especially Chris, who relentlessly comments because he's just as stoked as we are about these amazing changes. Go check out our Discord. There's a link in the description of the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, please take time to like, share, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And go check out Twitch. It's another really cool platform where you can check out our content.
Yep, we got peach emotes now.
They're so good. Andrew, you're the second member of the week because you made the sickest peach emotes that you have ever seen, and I just absolutely love them so much.
Yeah, you can check them out in the Discord. They should be available on Twitch. I need to test them out, actually. Boom.
Bam! Look at all those peaches. Chris, thank you, everybody. I'm obsessed with peaches. It's this huge inside joke in our Discord. It's our favorite sticker, and we've taken it to another level, and now we have custom peaches for your choosing pleasure that you can use. My favorite one is the one with the little mouth. Yeah, that's... Andrew, you are quite the artist.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy to see the peach getting some love. Love me some peaches.
Yep.
Love all of you. I love everything, especially that the new edition is almost here. I get so excited and just so stoked to talk about this stuff. I hope that all of you watching are getting some value from this video and just know that we've got some really fun stuff planned in the future. Michael looks like he's ready for you to stop the stream, Andrew. So for the love of God, let's wrap it up.
All right. Wrap it up. Good night, everybody. We'll see you on Discord.